What's up YouTube, Zero here, and today I have an amazing Birds of Prey deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. This deck consists of Decidueye EX and Pidgeot. Of course, this is Birds of Prey because both are birds and they're awesome. I love Decidueye EX, and Pidgeot is an OG Pokemon, so you have to find a deck for Pidgeot, of course. Not many people are utilizing Pidgeot. Decidueye EX is still a very good, prominent card that's being used in a lot of decks. Pidgeot is not, so I wanted to find a deck with Pidgeot and of course Decidueye EX, one of my favorite Pokemon. These two work really well together. In this video, I'll go over the deck build that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of these cards individually, and I'll talk about why they work so well with each other. Before I get into it, I do want to say if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content. I do a bunch of other video games, so feel free to check those out as well. Before I start talking about the cards, I want to talk about what's awesome about these two cards when paired up with each other. And right off the bat, if you know either of these two cards, what's awesome about these cards, if you know my deck builds, if you've watched my deck builds before, you already know I love Cyrus and I love Sabrina. Well, utilizing Decidueye EX reduces the need for Cyrus, and utilizing Pidgeot reduces the need for Sabrina, essentially making it so you don't need either of those two cards. But as I'm going through this video, I'm going to talk about why each of these Pokemon reduce the need for Cyrus and Sabrina. So essentially, you get a couple of free trainer cards inside of Decidueye EX and Pidgeot themselves, which is why this deck works so well with each other and itself. And these two birds work really well with each other because you're eliminating the need for a couple of trainer cards, allowing you to put other cards in this deck. So let's talk about Decidueye EX first, because this is going to be your heavy hitter. Decidueye EX has two moves. The first is going to be Razor Leaf for 2 grass energy, going to deal 80 damage. So that's pretty straightforward. However, it has a second move, Pierce the Pain. Pierce the Pain for 2 colorless energy. This is a grass type deck, so the 2 colorless energy doesn't mean anything, but it is 2 colorless energy. Pierce the Pain. This attack does 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon that has damage on it. So let's dissect that. 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon that has damage on it. Well, Cyrus, for those of you who don't know Cyrus, can take an opponent's Pokemon on the bench that has damage on it and move it to the active slot. Well, Decidueye EX eliminates the need for that. You now don't need Cyrus to move a Pokemon from the bench to the active slot, because if you have Decidueye EX in the active slot and whatever opponent's Pokemon has damage on it, you can utilize Pierce the Pain to hit it for 100 damage, which means you no longer need Cyrus to pull that Pokemon into the active slot. You can attack it with Pierce the Pain, which is absolutely awesome. It does 2 things. One, it hits your opponent for 100 damage, which is a great amount for only 2 energy. On top of that, being on the bench does not protect your opponent's Pokemon, because Pierce the Pain is exactly like Cyrus. You can hit your opponent's Pokemon on the bench for 100 damage. So it's doing 2 things. It's hitting very hard for only 2 energy, and it's eliminating the need for Cyrus because you can attack any Pokemon on the playing field that has damage on it. So that's absolutely awesome. I love Decidueye EX as a Pokemon, and I love this card. It's absolutely amazing. And Decidueye EX can be found in the Celestial Guardians Lunala packs. Next, I'm going to have 2 Rowlets and 1 Dartrix. Now pay attention to the ones I have. There are multiple Rowlets and multiple Dartrixes in the game right now, so you want to make sure you get the right ones. And the ones that I have as a part of this deck, both of them, both Rowlet and Dartrix, have the move Skill Dive. There's a reason I have these two in this deck, because Skill Dive does something extremely important to set up Decidueye. So Skill Dive, no matter if it's on Rowlet or Dartrix, gives you an opportunity to damage any opponent's Pokemon, which means it doesn't have to be in the active slot. So Dartrix, the Skill Dive does 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, and Rowlet, Skill Dive does 10 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. This means that if there's a Pokemon on the bench that you may want to attack later in the game with Decidueye EX, Rowlet and Dartrix can set up your Decidueye EX. That's why it's extremely important to have this Rowlet and this Dartrix paired with Decidueye, because it can set up a Pierce the Pain. You may identify a Pokemon on the opponent's bench. I'm just going to take, say, Magikarp, for example. I know water types aren't extremely popular right now, but Magikarp is a perfect example. Magikarp leads into Gyarados, and Gyarados is insanely powerful. But you see an opponent has Magikarp on the bench, you hit it for 10 damage with Rowlet to potentially set up a Decidueye EX Pierce the Pain. You evolve either into Dartrix or utilizing Rare Candy into your Decidueye EX, and now you can pierce the pain of that Magikarp on the bench thanks to your Rowlet setup. Same thing with Dartrix. Dartrix can hit an opponent on the bench. You see a Pokemon on the bench that's going to set up an insanely powerful Pokemon, and maybe you don't want that, so you hit it with Dartrix for that 20 for Skill Dive, which is setting up your Decidueye EX to hit them with 100 damage on the bench. So it's important that you utilize these two, this Rowlet and this Dartrix, so you can set up your Decidueye EX. The Rowlet with Skill Dive is going to be found in the same packs as your Decidueye EX, the Celestial Guardians Lunala packs. Dartrix, this Dartrix, however, is going to be found in the Extra Dimensional Crisis packs. So just be aware there are going to be different packs for your Rowlet Decidueye combination. That's going to be in the one pack, and then your Dartrix is going to be in the Extra Dimensional Crisis pack. So just be aware of that. But I absolutely love this line, this evolution line, because Rowlet and Dartrix set up Decidueye, so it works out really well. Next, I talked about Rare Candy, so let's just go right into Rare Candy, then I'll talk about the Pidgeot line. Rare Candy, for those of you who don't know, if you have a basic on the battlefield and it's been there for at least one turn, you can evolve into your Stage 2 if you have the Rare Candy and the Stage 2 in your hand, skipping the Stage 1. That means for both the Pidgeot and Decidueye EX line, you can skip their Stage 1 evolution. So for Decidueye EX, you can skip Dartrix. For Pidgeot, you can skip Pidgeotto. So that's why you only need one of each Stage 1. You can utilize Rare Candy to evolve into your Stage 2, your Decidueye EX and your Pidgeot, instead of utilizing the Stage 1, which is going to take an extra turn. It's why Rare Candy is so awesome and so important in any deck where you have Stage 2 Pokemon. And Rare Candy can be found in either of the Celestial Guardians packs. Now let's talk about this Pidgeot line. Pidgeot, an epic Pokemon, been around. It's probably, Pidgey is probably one of the first Pokemon you ever caught if you started out with Pokemon Red and Blue. It's probably the first Pokemon you ever caught, Pidgey, which is absolutely awesome. I love being able to utilize OG Pokemon, but let's talk about Pidgeot. First, it does have a move for 2 colorless energy. Wing attack deals 70 damage. Pretty straightforward, not too bad for 2 energy, dealing 70 damage. It's not going to break the bank, but it is a decent move. Next, the ability, eliminating the need for Sabrina. So the ability Pidgeot has is Drive Off. Once during your turn, you may switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. Your opponent chooses the new active Pokemon. That ability is exactly what Sabrina does. That is an unlimited amount of Sabrina cards in the form of a Pokemon, of course, as long as you have Pidgeot on the battlefield. That's pretty awesome to be able to disrupt your opponent's strategy. Of course, with Decidueye EX, you're eliminating the need for Cyrus with Pierce the Pain. Pidgeot, you're now eliminating the need for Sabrina. And Drive Off, as well as Sabrina, of course Sabrina's not in this deck, but Sabrina and Drive Off, the ability to switch out your opponent's active Pokemon, does so much over the course of a battle and can really mess up your opponent's strategy. Perhaps you want to drive off a Pokemon you just don't want to deal with. Perhaps you want to force your opponent to put a Pokemon with a high retreat cost in that active slot, so they have to figure out how to retreat their new active Pokemon. Perhaps you want to drive off a Pokemon in that active slot that has a Pokemon tool on it that you don't want to deal with. Drive Off does so much over the course of a battle. It's absolutely awesome. It can mess up your opponent's strategy. You won't have to deal with Poison Barb. You won't have to deal with Rocky Helm. It's awesome. It can get to a Pokemon on the bench that you'd rather deal with or completely mess up your opponent's strategy. So be on the lookout for Drive Off and make sure you utilize it to full capacity because it's an awesome move. Sabrina is an awesome card if you utilize Sabrina in your other decks. I know I do. And this is a way to not have to utilize Sabrina by utilizing it in card form. So utilizing the Decidueye EX with Pidgeot eliminates the need for 2 trainer cards. So that's absolutely awesome. Pidgeot is going to be found in the Genetic Apex Mewtwo packs. This Pidgeot. There is a Pidgeot EX. I'm not using that in this deck. I'm just using the non-EX Pidgeot, which is found in the Genetic Apex Mewtwo packs. Next, you need a couple of evolutions in this line. Of course, you need Pidgeotto, the stage 1. This Pidgeotto, there are multiple Pidgeottos in the game. This is going to be found in the Genetic Apex Mewtwo packs. It's for 1 colorless energy. Gust deals 30 damage. Makes it pretty easy to attack if you do get Pidgeotto to evolve Pidgey in that active slot. So I like to use this Pidgeotto, just 1 colorless energy. And then Pidgey, basic Pokemon, you need it to evolve into Pidgeot. There are multiple Pidgeys in the game. I go with this one just because it has a little bit extra HP. I'm not thinking I'm going to break the bank with Pidgey, so dealing 10 damage is just a little bit of extra damage. I like the extra health, especially with some Pokemon in the game, basic Pokemon that can deal pretty hard damage early on. So I like to use this Pidgey with the extra HP, and it's also going to be found in the Genetic Apex Mewtwo packs. Next, Pokemon communication. Pokemon communication is pretty important. Getting your Pokemon set up as quickly as possible, getting Pidgeot out there, utilizing its Drive Off, and getting Decidueye EX out there, being able to utilize Pierce the Pain is going to be insanely important. Pokemon communication is going to help with that. So Pokemon communication, you choose a Pokemon in your hand, and you switch it with a random Pokemon in your deck. So if you have the field set up, your battlefield set up as you want it, and there's a Pokemon you maybe want to get to, perhaps there's a Pidgeot in your deck that you want to get to, or a Decidueye EX in your deck that you want to get to, and there's a card in your hand that you don't necessarily need, perhaps it's an evolution of one of them, you can sacrifice that card in your hand that you don't need, utilizing Pokemon communication to potentially get to one of the cards you do need, one of the evolutions such as the Decidueye EX or Pidgeot, to potentially get that. It's insanely important to utilize Pokemon communication so you can more easily get to the Pokemon you need. Pokemon communication has saved me so many times getting me to the Pokemon I need. It's an absolutely awesome card. If you have, just for example, a Rowlet on the playing field, you have a rare candy in your hand, so you don't need Dartrix. Perhaps you want to utilize Pokemon communication on your Dartrix to try and get to your Decidueye EX because you already have the rare candy. You already know you don't need Dartrix. So you sacrifice your Dartrix to try and get your Decidueye EX to evolve into it a lot quicker. So Pokemon communication is a phenomenal card that can really set you up in battle early on. So I do love Pokemon communication, an absolutely fantastic card. And that's going to be found in the Space Time Smackdown Dialga packs. Next, a couple of cards that are pretty much in every deck. Pokeball allows you to draw a basic from your deck to your hand, and Professor's Research, you draw 2 cards. Last but not least, I have Lily. Now, there are a couple of options that you could potentially put here as your trainer card, or maybe you want to utilize 2 different trainer cards. I prefer Lily. Lily heals 60 damage from one of your stage 2 Pokemon. So there are several reasons why I like Lily. Lily increases the survivability of both of your Pokemon, both Decidueye EX and Pidgeot. It can be used on both because it can be used on stage 2 Pokemon. Second, it heals a lot of damage. 60 damage is a lot to heal up. You could potentially turn a Pokemon's 2-hit KO into a 3-hit KO. And that's going to be phenomenal when you're hitting for 100 damage with Decidueye. On top of that, I found that keeping the survivability up of these Pokemon, both Decidueye and Pidgeot, because you do have to evolve into them, is going to be more crucial than dealing extra damage or putting a cape in here. Healing for 60 damage is nice, because even if you do decide to go with Howl, which increases 30 damage for Decidueye, I found that it's not really going to help too much in terms of breaking points. Yes, you might be able to deal 130 if an opponent in the active slot you want to hit, but it's not going to be too big of a deal. I found that Lily is just better to keeping my team alive, allowing me to stay in the match a little bit longer and making it a lot harder for my opponent to kill me. So Lily is a great option here. It's my preferred choice. So I go with Lily, and it's going to be found in the Celestial Guardian Solgaleo packs. This is an absolutely amazing combination. Decidueye EX and Pidgeot go really well with each other. Again, eliminating the need for Cyrus and Sabrina, because Decidueye EX can attack any Pokemon on the playing field that has damage on it, and Pidgeot, in its ability Drive Off, is Sabrina in an ability form on a Pokemon. So this is an absolutely epic combination, which allows you to put different cards in your deck to get to the cards you need faster. You could put Pokemon Communication in your deck, which I do enjoy. You can put Rare Candy to evolve both of these Pokemon quicker, and you get Lily to increase the survivability of both of your stage 2 cards, which is absolutely awesome as well. Can definitely frustrate your opponents and make it a lot harder for your opponents to KO your stage 2 Pokemon. I've won a lot with this. I've competed with a lot of the best decks and beaten them. It is a very fun deck, one that can definitely get you a lot of wins. Definitely check this out and let me know what you think. Have you utilized a deck similar, or is this a deck that you may be surprised by that you're definitely going to use after watching this video? Let me know in the comments section. What do you think about Decidueye EX and Pidgeot in general? Is Decidueye EX one of your favorite Pokemon like it is mine, or is it a Pokemon you could take or leave? Let me know in the comment section. If there's a Pokemon that you want to see a deck build of, also let me know and I'll get it done. Just let me know the Pokemon, leave a comment in the comment section of one you want to see done, and I'll complete that for you. I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and if you did, again, feel free to give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content, and until next time, peace.